Hello and welcome to this episode 204 of Frame and Reference. You're about to drop into a conversation between me, Kenny McMillan, and my guest Matt Lewis, DP of Adolescence. Enjoy. I will say when the show came out, you know, all my friends know I have the podcast, but like I probably got more text messages from friends going like, "Have you seen this show? You got to talk to this guy." Like immediately.
That's so funny.
My sister doesn't give a shit about this, and she was just like, "You have to. I need to know." Like,
that's brilliant. That's great. It honestly still blows my mind that the response that we've got from it. You could never, like, you just don't think that's going to happen, do you, ever? And then it's taken some getting used to, but I'm just buzzing that people love it so much. It's great. It's brilliant.
Yeah. Well, and especially when you put that much work into it, you know, like.
Oh, it was easy. It was a breeze. No, imagine. It was. I guess so. But we were always doing it for ourselves. So I think that's what's strange is that you're sort of mates making a film, and you just don't think, or making a show rather, and you don't think that the world will see it like that. But
yeah, because I imagine, I mean, from the interviews I had seen with like the various departments and stuff, like it seemed to be a very like collaborative. Maybe feeling more like a student film than like an actual production, in the sense of like everyone's involved in like a more
completely
usual way.
Yeah, definitely. It was something that I think there was only one way to do it, and that was to collaborate. Like you couldn't make this and be in departments that were isolating themselves from each other. Like it was at its core, it was collaboration, and I think what aided that was the fact that there was a little bit of pressure on everyone. So everyone's role was important, and so there was way less ego, I think, because of that, because everyone was of value. And like it's sometimes on film sets people like to pretend like one job's more important than another, but on that one in particular, because everyone was so crucial when it was showtime, as it were, it created this atmosphere of collaboration and of sort of camaraderie, which was lovely, to be honest. I wish every job was like that, to be honest.
Yeah, well, and yeah, because like I watched part of it, but the Ursa Straps had like an interview with the sound department that I didn't get through, but I was just like, oh my God, sound must have been freaking out the entire time.
Yeah. Honestly, like their challenge was as great as anyone's. It was like, they were doing dances around camera as we were, doing dances around the cast. It was this sort of ridiculous feat. I don't know how anyone performed while there was so much like how the cast managed to be so in the zone in their performance when you've got, me like with the camera dripping sweat onto like the table in front of them, and then you've got like two boom ops flying around next to me. Like, yeah, it must be quite distracting.
Yeah. One of the best compliments. I'm a DP. One of the best I shouldn't even say best, but I was working on this documentary and we had all these lights set up, and the sound guy was kind of sitting in the corner like stewing. And then when it was time to go, I was like, "Hey, I've left you a little gap right there." And he just went,
"Yeah,
nice." Like suddenly he loves me. No shadow, nothing. He's like,
wow, amazing. Thank you so much. It's nice. Sometimes I think sound teams feel like they can't, like the DPs will always be, won't listen to their concerns, I guess. But if it sounds crap, like it's bad for you too. Like good sound makes a good cinematographer. No, hold on, something like that. If sound is good, it lifts the cinematography. I think that's really true. Yeah. So always look after your sound team. Like facts.
Well, and it's like I whenever I talk to like students or anything about getting a new, this gets brought up a lot, but like getting new cameras and stuff, everyone's like, "What should I get in 2025?" And I'm always like, whatever you can afford, man. Just like focus on your sound. Color grading's a lot more accessible now. That'll raise the stakes quite a bit in many cases.
Completely.
But I mean,
it's like
ostensibly a prosumer camera.
I mean, I was gonna say like it's a prosumer camera. Ultimately, I've got it. It's just over there. I just used it on a job.
Is it yours?
But no, not that one. The one that we used isn't. It's actually it's gone back to the rental house, and they've like put it in a penny case with like they put it in a penny case with like a plaque on the lid, like in the lid being like, "This was the camera you used for Adolescence," which I think is really cute. But no, I bought one afterwards, which because I was just like, it's a great camera. So Yeah, I should have spoken to DJI first. I bet they would have hooked me up. But
Oh, they
anyway,
would have given it
we
to you
live
for
and we
free.
learn.
Yeah.
I didn't know that like it was going to be a big hit, so I just was like, oh, I'm going to get the camera. So, yeah, now I feel like a bit of a mug. But anyway, um, yeah. So what was I saying? I can't remember. But yeah.
I think I interrupted
Oh
you.
yeah, it's a prosumer camera ultimately, isn't it? So it's just, and it's got loads of limitations. It's got loads of kind of things that aren't perfect about it, but it's also got loads of things it's great at. One of them happens to be doing one shots. So and just generally movement with that camera is fantastic. So it's always utilizing it in the way that um, makes most sense for your story for your project. But the limitations on it are stuff that 10 years ago. So like it's got two or three stops less dynamic range, maybe two stops than like like a Mini LF or something.
Right.
But like that's in the highlights. Most people aren't gonna care. Like most people watching your thing aren't gonna care if they can't see the edge of the cloud outside.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if you expose it in the right place, you're gonna be fine, and the audience aren't gonna care. And I think storytelling is always, you can use anything to tell a story, and those things that we get so obsessed over. I think it's really funny. I do the same, so we're all guilty of it.
Well, because
Yeah,
709 is 8 stops. So like
yeah, 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 yeah.
as long as you can
Exactly.
kind of fade that highlight out or whatever.
Exactly. It's more about the roll off of the highlight than it is, the overall range or whatever and what you're actually capturing. If you're inside and the sky's blown out outside, like unless the story's happening in the sky outside, you're probably okay. And if you've got a colorist, you're even more okay. But like, yeah, it's just priority, isn't it? It's like it's prioritizing what's important for your
Yeah.
project.
I mean, I've seen plenty of films where I've interviewed the DP about, and they're just like, "Oh yeah, we just put like outside the window is the light.
Yeah.
Like it's just like a
Yeah, yeah,
12
yeah.
by. They're like, it's blown out. Who cares? I don't need to
Like
see."
people can't do that anymore now. Like you got like Alexa 35, Venice 2. They're all like you can see everything
You can see
outside.
the grid. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You're like you can see the barn doors of that lamp. Damn it! Like I just trying to blow that out so it looks like the sun, but I can't do that.
Yeah.
So you got to lift the whole interior by like however many stops to blow it all out. But yeah, it's funny that you end up actually seeing more problems than sometimes than you want to. Yeah, or even just like you can just you just diffuse some window and just make it look like it's blown out sky. Sometimes you have to do that. No one loves to do it, but you have to, and it's even harder to do that now. So because it would just be like middle grey on the window, like damn,
Right. Yeah, you know what's funny?
yeah,
I was interviewing Catherine Goldschmidt about The Last of Us, the second season,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
she was saying that there was a few shots where she had to use a Ronin because it was like there wasn't enough space to put like the 35 I think they were using,
Was
and
that
under the chain link fence,
barbed wire? Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Sorry,
when
the
she's
chain. Yeah,
crawling
chain
away,
link
yeah,
fence. Yeah,
and
yeah,
she had
yeah,
like this um kind of scorpion arm or whatever that they could lay
yeah.
on the ground, like it was a specific one, and then they just attached it to
Nice.
that. And the same thing, they used the Cooks, the SP3s,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
Sick.
my buddy
So
Ed
good.
Moore owns like two of
Hmm.
them.
Yeah, yeah. I know
So
it.
that they really like for a camera that came out 5 years ago or whatever it is, like it's suddenly seeing this
Yeah,
surge in use. Civil War, obviously.
yeah. It is. I think people are recognizing the importance of what it can do. Like,
Yeah,
and even if it's just saving your ass one day, like you haven't got enough time to like lay the track, and you're like, oh god, like, and the Steadicam ops on a daily, and he's not here, and it's like, okay, well, just pick up the 4D. You know, like accept that the image isn't going to be exactly the same, but you can probably grade it within 99% of sort of most people's recognition of what the two cameras, and then run around with it and get the shot that you needed to get, and not be ashamed of the fact that you've used a different system that only cost 10 grand or whatever. So yeah.
what were the kind of like trade-offs? Because obviously well, I shouldn't assume, I can just ask you, but with
Assume away, it's fine.
yeah, I'm assuming obviously not having to balance a gimbal, which that's gonna
Yeah,
eat up half your day,
yeah,
size,
yeah.
weight, and stuff. But like, what were the considerations into using that versus like, trading off using a more sort of, I suppose, professional system?
Yeah, I mean, professional systems were heavier. I think that's one of the main things. But yeah, like we tested a Ronin 2 with like Sony Burano. We tried the sort of ZG system, which is
Yeah.
a wicked system, but again, it wasn't quite the right feel, and it was super heavy. Movies, all sorts of like different gimbals. What did I try? There was like a weird. There was another gimbal thing that I tried that was super strange. I've got it somewhere. I
Was
don't
it
know
the
where it is.
lettuce? The two-handed lettuce thing?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Is
yeah.
it called lettuce? I know it's called lettuce. Well, maybe
Or
lettuce.
whatever it is. Yeah,
Lettuce.
lettuce.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The helix lettuce or something.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy. Tried that. I mean, like again, good for some stuff, but not for what we wanted to do. I wanted to feel more like a gimbal, and then like your gimbal wise, you're either flying like a Ronin RS like 3 or 4 now, is it? With like a smaller camera with a recorder like they did on the Creator, which is like a really like brilliant rig where it's like shoulder mounted, which is really cool. So
Right.
we tried that. And then, it just came around to the fact that like the priority for this piece was being able to move in an interesting way, in a dynamic way, in a way that would enable us to do the most storytelling, like without limitations. And like if I was walking around with the Ronin 2 with like and then to like carry it, you need like I don't know, like an easy rig or like a, ready rig or something over me. And suddenly I'm like a literal like I'm like King Kong walking through the set,
Right.
like knocking into everything. It would have just been impossible. Like even just getting through a doorway is hard. Like, obviously a steady cam was a consideration, but there's no way you could do that for an hour. So it was kind of the only tool for the job in so many regards because it was this little thing, fairly little. I mean, it still hurts if you hold it for like 15 minutes out in front of you or 10 minutes out in front of you. You're gonna feel it, which is why we dual operated. Me and my operator lead, well, not dual operated, but handed it between each other.
Right.
But yeah, there's other drawbacks like yeah, like we've said about dynamic range. We had to use the 6K head because we couldn't record 8K for the length of time we needed it on the 1 TB card.
Mm. Does it
So
only
we were
have one
limited.
slot?
It does only have one slot,
And
and it only has
it's
1 TB cards. And
are they specialty cards?
the SSDs.
Um,
We could have. I don't know if we could have. We didn't try. Like maybe got a larger hard drive and SSD'd in, but I think there would have been like a firmware block within the camera anyway.
yeah.
That wouldn't have let you do that. So yeah, so we're limited to the 6K head, which meant that there's a little bit more rolling shutter, a little bit more moire than the 8K. It doesn't have the OLPF on it, so it's stripped back in that sense. So we just have to be wary of those things. But again, like once you know of the limitations, you can, you know, well, we had the luxury of being able to adapt the image to that. So
Mm.
there was some chain link fencing that was causing worry. So we covered it with posters or banners and stuff at the school. Like we broke it all up. So we just noticed the stuff we were aware. Netflix were really great and helpful with us. Because obviously this is not an approved camera, so we had to like specially approve it for this, for doing these. And they gave us a whole list of things to watch out for, and we did loads of tests with them and like showed them what we were doing to make sure that they knew we weren't nuts and that we were going to make something that looked good regardless of the camera. So yeah, there's all those things, but like the pros of it, I mean, it's lightweight. It can be handed between two people. It can go from like gimbal with the Z-axis enabled to gimbal without the Z-axis enabled. So you can like run really fast. Then you can also do more intricate moves like close-ups where you don't see the Z-axis going up and down. You can lock the gimbal all mid-shot, so you can like hold sport mode or whatever it's called, and that locks tilt and pan. So then it's just doing roll, which is kind of the bit of handheld that no one wants anyway, which is quite nice. Well, no, that's a broad statement, but like it's pretty good. So that's great. The built-in transmission that DJI have is brilliant. Like it's got more latency than other systems, but it's really good range. And
For like focus
again,
pullers or monitors or both.
yeah. So like we went to our DJI system went to the focus puller, and the focus puller was wearing a backpack that basically he received the image from the transmission from the DJI, and then he pumped an image into a Vaxis system, which then distributed it a little bit further.
Mm.
Um,
He was the node
but
for everyone else.
yeah.
That's
So he
funny.
had to, but we needed to make sure that he was the person that had signal at all times.
Right.
Even if the Vaxis system went down a little bit, they could just about get by ish. He had to be the one that was, the closest to the action to make sure he had the best image. But yeah, so You got the transmission that's built in. What else is there? It was ProRes RAW, which was great. We managed to shoot that for all of them, and then we did a bunch of tests in the grade, and we were super happy with how it looked. Um, yeah, it's a good bit of kit. I mean, there was limitations with the lens choice. We were, you're limited to small sort of like well, lightweight lenses. I think the limit of the head is like 1,200 grams or something similar. So you're sort of like you, you either have a lens that's within that weight, or you have the problem that we had, which is we needed to control exposure via like a variable ND filter, which we use like the Tilsa Mirage, um, which was like stripped back. It had the variable ND in it with a little wireless motor and remote. That was obviously like, I think I measured it. It was like 300 grams, which isn't a lot. I mean, pretty light when
It's a
you
lot
strip it
when
right
you're
back.
under
It's
that
a lot when
much.
you've only got
Yeah.
1,100 or 200 grams to work with. So then thankfully the SP3s we used were like 650 grams. I think we came, yeah, it was something like that because it all came within like 50 grams of the limit. You could probably straddle that limit and get the other side of it and it would then be okay. But we wanted it to perform at its best for, the length of time and not bug out with us. But that was the other thing with like something like a Ronin 2, you're like, it's brilliant when you've got a Ronin tech that can every 15 minutes make sure that everything's sweet. But like, that's good like a music video and it's like narrative stuff that's not like this. But when you've got things getting loose and you've got like your pan starting to drift and your joystick's getting buggy, like it's it's going to stitch you up. And there was like 100,000 things that could go wrong on this production that we needed to make sure that the things that we could avoid going wrong didn't go wrong. And like if we can make sure camera was weirdly quite a reliable point throughout, then that would mean that there would be less blame on us if things went wrong.
Right.
Which is always key. You just don't want the technology to be letting you down, limiting the story. Like if all the performers were smashing it, and that's and then like we weren't able to complete the episodes because the camera couldn't do it, then we would look really silly. So we had to choose the system that was at least the most reliable as well. But it did so much more than just be reliable. So yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely should have got a free Ronin 4D after saying all this, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
God.
We'll see. I don't know anyone.
Annoyingly, I mean it all. Yeah. What
We'll
the hell?
have to. I want one too, by the way. So if
Yeah. So hook up Kenny as well, please.
yes, please.
Yeah.
It sucks. I'm actually. So I'm working on this docu-series, and my buddy's the producer. I've known him for 12 years, 15 years, and so he's very forward with me. And we're shooting. He doesn't really know camera systems. It's just like he doesn't want problems. Classic producer. And they were off in like the Bahamas or something, and he was running second camera, which he does a lot, weirdly enough. And it was a Ronin, I think it was the 8K. And he starts texting me. He's like, "Why don't you get one of these?" I'm like, "What do you mean? Why don't I?" Like, it's not expensive, but it's not cheap. Like,
yeah, it's
like
every just like a bit of cash laying around. Like it's still enough when you get the full
new gig
package.
Every new gig, he wants me to buy something new to make his life easier, and I'm like, I want to make my life easier.
Yeah, like not be in debt, please.
Yeah.
It straddles that line of like it's expensive enough that it is prohibitive. Like it's not like you can't just get one for a few thousand, but it's comparatively to how horrendously expensive like cinema cameras are. Not horrendously expensive, I'm sure. All the engineering involved, all that sort of stuff. But it is like there's no way you can buy one if you're just a normal person, really.
Yeah.
So this is the first time I've owned a cinema camera, and
really?
That's because, yeah, like I haven't got like, dude, I'm like, I was 28 when I shot Adolescence. Yeah, I've not been doing this necessarily, since I came out of the womb, and my dad isn't a DP with an Alexa or anything, so I'm not like I can't, there's no, so it's very much like I've basically just been going to rental houses and using their cameras for years because I can't buy a whatever Alexa 35. So
yeah, I mean I got a C500 Mark II, and I got the first one in the country. Right, I got and I was so stoked on it. Like there was a lot of buzz around it, and then the pandemic hit.
Oh,
And so I
and then
didn't
you
use
weren't
it. I
filming
was
anything.
just sitting on it. I
Yeah.
used it as the podcast webcam for like 2 years because, what else was I going to do with it?
Nice.
Oh, every
Yeah,
DP
yeah.
would get on and go, "What the fuck are you doing?" And I'm like,
Yeah, what are you
listen,
shooting this on?
yeah, I'm
What
on
are you
like a
on now?
50. It's
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. It's
but
gorgeous.
yeah, it did end up paying itself off later. But there was
Yeah.
certainly a few years there where I was like, oh
Yeah, bad
no.
timing, man. That's
Well, and
unfortunate.
then
Went to
the
know.
FX series started coming out, and
Yeah,
the
which is
buzz
brilliant.
changed, and people stopped asking for it unless it was like a doc.
Yeah,
But it is, I mean,
yeah.
there's something to be said for obviously owning your own cameras. It's a lot easier to get hired as a freelancer for
I
certain
bet. Oh,
gigs,
yeah.
But
Absolutely.
at the same
Yeah.
time, like it is kind of the dream to not have to go in debt and just rent. To be on
Yeah, like
productions
I've
where
been
there's a budget
super
for that.
lucky completely. Like I've been on jobs that have always their route has always been to rank it from it's been narrative work basically. I think if I was in the commercial world more, that's where you might be able to sort of do like a smaller commercial or a mid-sized commercial and bring on your kit. I think
Right.
they love that there. Whereas I think in narrative, they really appreciate the going to a company that is going to have staff and they're going to
Support.
be able to, if something goes wrong, support. Yeah, if something goes wrong, they can just, go out and help and have that. If it's just the DP's kit, you're like, oh man, like then the loader's got to go to the, I don't know, get like a replacement part from CVP or whatever. And it's just like, yeah, the whole thing is just a bit more of a mess, isn't it? So,
Yeah. You started as a loader, right?
oh, well, yeah, I started like after university, I went, I camera trained and loaded on like music videos and stuff, trying desperately to form a bond with any sort of camera team that would want me to be there because I just like that you never know what to do when you leave uni or sort of like people tell you like, oh, make a website and a business card and this is gonna be sweet, and like none of those things are helpful really. I mean do them, but like they're not the thing that's gonna build you a career. So it was very much like doing free sort of music videos on Facebook and just sort of like trying to find like crews to settle in with. And I was doing loading while I basically started shooting short films like alongside with Phil,
Mm.
who's the director of Adolescence. He was in my graduate film as an actor, and that's how we met. And then we basically he called me up like a year after uni and was like, really enjoyed working with you on that film. Do you want to make some short films? And so I started shooting with him, just like alongside, like not telling anyone I was making stuff because he always feel a bit funny about that.
Yeah.
And I was focus pulling when I shot Boiling Point, and I wasn't telling people that I was doing that. It was only when Boiling Point came out, people started to be like, hold on, didn't you shoot that?
Yeah.
You're like the focus puller. And I was like, yeah, no. But even then after that came out, like it was post pandemic and I needed to earn a living. I needed to put a roof over my head. So I was focus pulling kind of up until I got offered my first TV job as a DP. Because just, you can't just pull yourself a DP and then all the work comes in. It's like really there's like it's a real as everyone knows. So you've got to just do what you need to be within your means to survive until you can make that jump. And even then, I shot an episode of television for the BBC, and then I got like no work and was skint, and I had to like go into my overdraft, and it was the whole thing of I've got no money again, and you do this whole sort of cycle of like, yes, I've got some cash finally, and then like try and like keep hold of that, and you just see it go and go and go and go, and then you're like, oh, I've got no money again, and now I'm eating like pasta and ketchup to survive. Like, good, this is fun. So yeah, it's that whole rigmarole. But then work gradually picked up more and more, and now we're okay. But it takes time, takes a lot of time. Well, I say that I'm still not 30 yet, so I've been very fortunate that it's all happened sort of like at this age for me.
Brother, I'm 35 and very poor. So,
So comparison is the thief of joy,
Thief of
whatever
joy,
they
yeah.
say. I've been very lucky. I've been exceptionally lucky with my circumstances of everything. So,
Well, I will say that I've noticed all the DPs I've met from the UK, there does seem to be, whether it be through the BBC or the other like kind of channels, the way that the UK seems to support filmmakers in a way that, at least in LA, but let's just say US, they don't. There seems to be a lot of younger heads of department coming out of the UK with experience. It's not just like, here you go,
Yeah.
but like there does seem to be some sort of inside track that we don't have out here.
I think it's a sort of self-managing one. I don't think it's like there's no organization that's necessarily looking after. I mean, there's sort of screen skills. There's a few organizations that give like young filmmakers a chance to get on set, and I think that's super important. Like filmmakers that aren't from backgrounds where like their family are filmmakers, like people that are want to tell stories but don't know that can be a career for them. So that there are organizations in the UK that do that, which is wicked. But I think mainly it's like there certainly was a few years ago. I'm sure that still is now. I'm just not in the circle as much. But there's a real network of people that just want to make stuff, and I think obviously there's less strict union sort of like strength in the UK. So you can come on and load on a music video and get like £50 as your pay that day,
Right.
and like that's crap. It is an awful like position to be in, but it gets you on set and it gets you a credit. And then you've met crew that are also doing like stuff that actually pays like 200 quid a day. And then you sort of gradually sort of like it gets you to meet people. So if you are someone that is, got a good work ethic, you're smart, you want to do well, and you're, dedicated, you get noticed by people because you can at least get on set a little bit easier in that system. It does mean a lot of people are working for not very much money,
Yeah.
which is below ideal, but it does give you the first step.
And you guys have free healthcare.
And we have free healthcare.
So
and hopefully we will have it for as long as possible.
Yeah. Because
what everyone's
I've been saying that for a minute when people have been talking about like, oh, how do we get production back here? And I'm like, well, it's a countrywide problem, so it's not something the film industry can tackle. But like, if we could get that system, that would remove so many issues that filmmakers in the US are having, where people are losing union days. They get kicked out of the union because they haven't worked enough, and now they don't have healthcare, they don't have a pension, they don't have
yeah.
And it's just like, we could solve this, but it would have to be a countrywide issue.
Yeah, that's a little larger than what we can just do on this podcast. But you're right. It gives people a foundation of safety, and I don't think there's any shame in that. I think you should, just be able to like know that if you fall ill, you're going to be okay. Ultimately. So yeah, anyway, that's a different podcast. But yeah, you're right. Those sort of things, creating a foundational sort of safety net for people, means that they then can excel in other ways because the risks aren't as great. If they fail, they'll still be alive, and that's always nice.
Yeah. Well, and failure is part of it, right? Like to assume.
Yeah, you've got to fail.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, like I've literally got so many horror stories racking through my brain of the ways I failed in the last like 10 years. But like every single one of them, I probably learned something from. Even if I didn't, it just like thickens your skin, thickens your resilience. And
Well, and also the times I've failed, there's been a couple that were maybe a little unfortunate, but it's better to fail on crappy little music videos or whatever, because they don't necessarily matter. Like if you fail on Adolescence because it's your second gig, oh no, you're never working again.
Yeah, completely. Those are the training grounds for that's where you can fuck up and it's okay. Like I remember once I fell between like a maintenance pit of two train tracks on a short film with a camera, and I managed to launch the camera onto the side, like got it to safety, and like smacked my shin and my arm on the way down, and got told off by the crew and all that, and it was great fun. But like those things, and that was when I was like a loader and stuff. And those things are just like you think that you're like, well, now I know that when I'm carrying the camera, gotta be a bit more careful. I remember at one time, literally a lens fell out the front of the camera because my hands were too cold. And I didn't lock the PL mount like when I was I was a loader. I shouldn't have been doing the lens change because the focus puller had gone to the toilet. And it was all like but then you learn those things. You learn like actually, regardless of if you're being rushed by someone, you should you can take the time you need to get something done because it's more important that you do it safely. And like there's all these little micro lessons that you learn by doing something massively embarrassing on a night shoot in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. I mean, the phrase that I always have to like remind myself, because, you'll have an AD over your shoulder or whatever, but slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And like there's so many things like that people don't tell you until you do something too fast.
Yeah. You had
Yeah.
mentioned Boiling Point. There's 3 versions of that, right? There's like a short, a film, and a TV show.
Yeah, we made a little like a mini little brand empire accidentally. But we did the short film like kind of that was one of the first short films I did with Phil. We just he had a script for a kitchen drama because he worked in the kitchen. So but after he was acting when he was younger, he like sort of became a chef for 20 odd years. And so we had this thing that was like uh yeah, it was all real time. And then I was just like, and I look back, it's one of those like sliding door moments where you could never know like where something will take you as suggestion. I was like, well, like I started thinking about how we'd film it, and I was like, well, the thing is, he goes from there to there, so why don't we just like move across with the camera? And I'm like, you know what? We're like 3 or 4 minutes in, and it's all working really well as a one shot. Should we just keep going and see how long it can? And it was like a 17-minute one shot, the short film, and it was just through sort of like observing a script that was like felt like it fit like that, and then just having a go at it. And suddenly we made a one short film. Um, and he was really we were really fortunate that he was friends with Stephen Graham from when they were both in Band of Brothers together.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just like connections that you're just like how so lucky that that was possible. And yeah, he was in it, so we had a face for the film potentially, and then we got funding for a film with him in it, the promise of him being in it when his schedule allowed, and yeah, and it sort of kept going, and I was like, I remember when we found out that we'd got funding for a feature film version of the short film. Um, I was like, oh, that's cool, but I'm guessing we won't do it like as a one shot, then we'll just do like a normal thing. And Phil was like, no. What? What do you mean? That's the whole point. It worked so well. Let's keep going. I was like, oh God, okay. What have I signed up for? Little did I know it would be the sort of thing that made it possible for me to do this as my job, really. Because that was like I was not a DP when I shot that. Like not really. Like I didn't. Well, you're a DP at any point if you want to be, but like you're like I didn't know so much. Like I really just was trying to do it by feel. I was just like this feels right. I had to lean on my gaffer a lot. I had to lean on the grips a lot just to help me through working it out, working out how to make it look good. I think I sort of knew how the camera needed to move. Sort of, I feel very blessed that that comes to me quite naturally, and I like working out that puzzle through sort of empathy with the characters or dissecting the story, whatever it is. But yeah, there was so much to learn on that job and since that I look back at it now and I'm like, oh, that's nice. That was a good attempt of a one shot, but like we just like a few things lined up, people enjoyed it still. So and got lucky there. Like, um, yeah, obviously we worked hard on it as well, but it's still you need um luck and hard work for it to all happen at the rate that it has happened, I think.
Yeah, with Adolescence being obviously a larger production and you can control. I do want to get into like lighting and stuff in a second, but
Mhm.
Boiling Point, at least the short, I believe, was in like a real restaurant, right?
Um, yeah, the short film was in like a catering college,
Oh, and then
and
the
then
movie
and
was
then the feature film was in a real restaurant. Yeah, the like barely closed for us because they were a real restaurant.
right.
We only closed them for 2 nights. They were basically rehearsing like in the day before they had their evening sort of
Yeah.
shift. Yeah.
So what lessons did you like? I want to know like what were the cross lessons? Like what did you learn on Boiling Point that helped Adolescence, and what did you learn on Adolescence that would have made Boiling Point maybe not better,
Yeah.
but
No, 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 like completely. Gosh. So one positive lesson was that I learned that there was a way of this working, like the one shot genre working in a way that where I didn't maybe like one shots that I'd watched before, I felt like I was too aware of the presence of the camera. And I felt like that was through lack of motivation, like lack of always giving the camera a reason to turn, like a visual reason in the shot, and whether that's character motivation or an object moving, but like something that always like pulled the camera to the next place. And then that was a strategy for Boiling Point, and it worked really well because of that. It felt like, even though there was still like a camera operator, like it was like, there's, you feel the footsteps of the camera operator, and it's still like sort of bouncing around a little bit. It still felt closely tied to the characters enough that uh yeah, you forget that there's filmmaking happening. I think that was the bit that I wanted to get rid of from other things I've seen. I wanted to just feel like I was immersed in it. So the next level up from that was actually was it being on a gimbal, which is why we did loads of testing of gimbals, because then you really don't feel the operator's presence. You just feel like the camera is floating and it's sort of omnipotent and it's inevitable. And that was the thing of like, can we get Adolescence to that place, or can we get the next project rather to that place? Because I felt like Boiling Point was a really good test bed, but I felt like there was so much that I wanted to try that would elevate this genre, like in my head. Anyway, so yeah, camera movement was quite a big thing about like what we learned from Boiling Point. Um, the sense of like how to plan a one shot was quite good. So when we came onto Adolescence, we had already planned and rehearsed a one shot feature before, so we sort of knew how to schedule, even something like how to schedule like what we were shooting. Like they were asking from very very early on in the sort of prep of Adolescence. Warp, the production company, were like, how do we budget and schedule this? And I was like, oh well, in that case, that's a massive camera budget, please. No, but that they were very honest, and I was very honest back, and you just had to. I was like, I think for based off of how we did Boiling Point, this is how the schedule might work. Like 3 weeks per episode, and we'll sort of do 2 weeks of rehearsals. And obviously, I probably went like, we'll have like 5 weeks per episode. No, I don't know. I think they were like, this is sort of what we're looking at, and I was like, yes, that'll work, or that won't work, and sort of worked it all out together. But there was, yeah, just in terms of how you organize and how I plan it as a DP, like how I'm very much a sort of visual learner, I guess. So like for me, I had this, I when I do a shot list, I really struggle for it to be like a written list. I much prefer if it's like a sort of a diagram of the scene, essentially like a floor plan. So I use Shot Designer. The app that, like, I'm sure most people know now, is like, it's super useful for that. You got your characters, you got your cameras, you can move them around. And I designed Boiling Point on that. And so I knew that that's how I wanted to design Adolescence, was like from above. Like I wanted to see this route take place. Because I also knew how helpful that was for other departments. You've got like ADs can look at it and understand where to dress in extras and where to, like hide, where to do all sorts of stuff. Sound team, it was really useful. For the cast, it was super useful. I could just show them. I could be like, here's this classroom that is in this episode, and you're here. The camera's going to come in. It's going to look that way, as you can see, and then it's going to go that way. And then it's like, and then they're like, oh yeah, sweet. Okay, so if I do this, it will look good for camera. I'm like, yeah, sweet. So like everyone gets on the same page a lot quicker when they can see it like that. I think it's sort of like a universal language, as opposed to being like, some medium close up that like develops into like bananas around the corner into like a like a high angle close up like wide. You're like, right, well, cool. I don't know what that means. So like certainly most people don't know what that means. So yeah, it's that was stuff we pulled over from Boiling Point. I'm trying to think what else. I think really that was, it was where we wanted to take the visual language, and it was it was sort of like how to, and I guess lighting, which probably gets us onto lighting quite nicely, but lighting was like, that's certainly for me, Boiling Point, the lighting was actually, I was going to say it was more of a challenge, but weirdly, because lighting is the thing that I've been catching up on. Like, I feel like I'm there now, which is lovely. But like for years, I was a camera boy, and I, had to learn the lighting craft more. Like that was the way around than my learning was. So Boiling Point was actually weirdly quite good for me, because it wasn't about like a massive lamp on a massive machine through loads of different diffusions and some gels and this and that, or like, it wasn't like about knowing all the technicals with lighting and, like how DMX this and that and like doing all this sort of stuff. It was more about here's a box of light bulbs because that's all we can afford, and we're in a restaurant. There's loads of lighting fixtures. We're going to move them so that they're over the tables or slightly behind the tables if we want them backlit. They're on manual dimmers. And my poor gaffer was there like dimming them up and down during boiling point to try and get the levels right throughout. And so we sort of vignetted the scene. We lift up the table that we came up to and we drop the others back and all that sort of stuff. And it was very much more like sort of me visualizing lighting just from a very basic standpoint, which actually was really nice. And it is the way to do it for a one shot because you can't overcomplicate. If you overcomplicate, you're gonna have a lighting shot and you're gonna have a shadow that you've created, and you end up chasing your own tail. You sort of overlight something very quickly. So you have to work with what's there or create what's there, which is what we did in Adolescence. We were able to build two sets. The children's sort of secure unit, which is episode 3, and the police station, which is episode 1. Both of those were built in the same space, basically, same stage. And we were able to design the inbuilt practical lighting because it all has to be in vision. Well, most of it does, from the ground up. So with the production designer, work out, how exactly knowing the route where we might want fixtures. So stuff like there was these like corner fixtures in the medical room that like sit into the corner between the ceiling and the wall, and it was being able to say which walls we wanted them on, so that we knew like as we came in, there's one there, so we can backlight from that side. Then we spin around, there'll be one over there. All sorts of little moments where even the placement of the tactiles in the ceiling, like there's like a giant grid of lighting, but like office lighting. But all of those were within our control. They were all DMX. They were all like dimmable. So we were doing that all the way through, sort of adjusting lighting. And the same with, we made sure we had fluorescent housing that was the same size as our tinies, so that it looks like fluorescent tubing, but it's not. It's a stereo. So we've got complete sort of color control there as well. So it was everything is. I don't know what the methodology is. I guess there's less is more is very much part of it, but also just like knowing your key positions. Like, this is a key frame here. This is another key frame here. Let's make that frame look as good as we can with what we have around us. And then try and work out how we get from this to that without, seeing the boom shadow or seeing, the camera shadow or seeing myself in a mirror or whatever the problem is. There's always the problem. But yeah, like it's and then obviously the other episodes where we were outside, it was very much like work with the sun, very like work with the sun, and you can't beat the sun, especially when you look everywhere. Really hard to beat the sun when you can't flag it at all or put a machine over the school or anything. It's very much in vision at all times. We didn't have to do too much painting out of like lighting.
I wanted to ask about that, like how much, because I imagine you give the clip to the editor and they're just like, done,
yeah.
Okay, yeah, but I imagine
the editor was like on VFX. Yeah, there wasn't there was the one thing that we had a big old, it was like a Manitou, no, it was like some sort of cherry picker, but it was a Manitou, out and by the alleyway the chase ends up at in the school episode. And that was because that alleyway was like kind of just like not, it didn't have very much natural shape. There was these two houses either side and it was always kind of shaded and it was ended up being quite flat. So we were like, okay, we'll put a big machine in like the car park behind and we'll backlight that scene. And then I don't know what happened. I think for a couple of rehearsals the generator blew up, or didn't blow up, but it like died, and I was like, oh, that's annoying. So we had like some mechanical problems with that lamp. And then I think we noticed that when the sun completely went away, it looked really artificial. And then it ended up being in, I can't remember if it was in the take we used. No, it wouldn't have been because it was the last one. But for a couple of takes, the cherry picker, there'd been a miscommunication. The cherry picker was in vision, but not on. So the light wasn't on, it was just upright, just in the back of shot. And my
Sweet.
gaffer was like, I can see my gaffer afterwards be like, I'm so sorry, I don't know how that happened. It was like I told them to get rid of the lamp. They thought I turned to kill the lamp. So it would have been some unnecessary VFX of just painting out this massive machine, this giant green cherry picker. But thankfully, we just decided to basically be like, it wasn't it wasn't the solution. It would have been a big VFX bill because we would have kept on seeing it over the top of the houses. And it was even that felt like it was too much because it looked great, like, as he came to the alleyway and into that conversation, but it just started to feel weird the way it was falling off against the wall. And if the sun came out, it was a waste of a light because the sun was always just overpowering it anyway. So it was, there was loads of scenarios that we had like, like 5Ks and 12Ks playing through windows in the school to keep like a consistent level in the interiors. What we would do is if it was really overcast, we'd like put diffusion on all the lamps and then take them all off if the sun was going to come out for that take. So we were sort of like had a plan A and a plan B. But yeah, I don't think there was really very much other than maybe like VFXing out some black wrap or something, like something that was like hanging into shot, occasionally, those sort of things. But
Like,
nothing.
famously that
No.
through the pass through.
Oh yeah. So like, yeah, in terms of painting out lights, there wasn't very much. There was some VFX throughout. There's some, obviously the CGI window is pretty fun. That was like that's a good one that like people will get really like gassed about because they're not expecting it and then it happens and they're like, whoa, how'd they do that? And it's like as simple as you think it is. We just got rid of the window and put it back in later.
Yeah.
And just shut the camera through it basically. But there was that, and then what's quite fun is in the school episode as well, like bless them, the kids were brilliant. Like there was 350 kids that were all on their school holidays and they were all there, but honestly they really struggled to not look at the camera when the camera was nearby. And I would be the same if I was their age. I'd be like, oh no, there it is. There they go. But there's so many VFX eyeballs
Oh no.
in that episode. And it's dead creepy. Like I remember being in the grade and we would be like, and my colorist was like, oh, there's a VFX layer here. Let me just check what that is. And you like turn it off. And there's like three kids' eyes will just go bang straight down the lens. And you're like, oh god, that's like really creepy.
That's funny.
Yeah. So we were like, oh no, no, put that VFX back on. Yeah. There's like, and they to be fair, it wasn't that many in the take we used. It was probably, I would say it's 15. Which when there's like that many kids, you would imagine that they would just be like little glances and just like, oh, and then they know that they've kind of fucked up, and then you can see them sort of look a bit bashful afterwards. But
right.
Yeah.
Well, luckily, like, because I've done that, I've gotten rid of blinks before. It's a pretty like I'm not saying it's easy, but it's especially if it's a quick glance, like you only need a still frame. Like it's not like a very expensive.
We move our eyes so quickly, like it is literally like one frame, isn't it, or whatever? So yeah, not a terrible VFX to have to do, but yeah, and I think I was definitely in a reflection somewhere. We got painted out, obviously, couldn't help it, and then so was Lee, actually, my other operator. So we both it was 1 for 1, so it's fine. And there was a couple of boom shadows and stuff, which was inevitable because there's so many points of light. Like I tried to be a good DP, like we were saying, and get rid of things that were really causing an issue. But like when you're looking every direction, there's going to be something. And as much as it hurt their pride, they were somewhat accepted that like it would be the case as well. So we were like, it's cool. As long as it's not across someone's face and it's on a wall, it's all right. We can manage it.
Well, and it's like for an hour-long one take, there has to be some room for error that that you don't just call the shot.
Yeah. You're not just like, oh, cut. There's a boom shadow. It's like, yeah, we'll make those. You sort of by the end of rehearsals like what you're gonna be okay with.
What was the like handoff protocol for like making sure that you didn't see like obviously the gimbal head's gonna go down, but like how do you organize that in such, especially when you're snapping on to like cams or whatever, like how do you make that not look obvious? Just practice.
Practice was a massive thing. It was always like utilize that rehearsal time to keep on practicing stuff, and we had loads of camera testing, which was really good. That was one thing in the budget chat that I was like, camera testing on this is going to be massive, so please. I'm not just saying this. And so there was things like handovers that we were able to test a lot. The hand-to-hand ones that between me and Lee were essentially like there's a handle on either side of the camera and a top handle. So I would maybe reposition. I don't know, what we'd do is like have you'd be holding the camera by the two side handles, you'd pass it across. The other person would try and take it from the top handles to sort of take the weight and then slide their hand into the other grip, and then eventually at some point when it's convenient, sort of take your hand off the top and bring it down to the side. And you sort of do that for the 4D, like all variations of that, depending on what the move is. And sometimes it's too quick to even be able to do that. I know when Lee takes the camera out the window, he just grabbed the top handle. That was all he was like, just whatever I do, just grab the top handle, and then I can work the rest out afterwards.
Yeah.
And it's the same when after he'd done the running section there, he kind of chucks the camera to me on a tracking vehicle. And I take it by the top handle and just pull it in and make sure I've got it. So yeah, but having 3 points of contact for the camera was like essential. And sometimes you just grab it by the top and the bottom, even, or I present it to someone like really gently. So I present it to Lee with like top and bottom, and he'd take it by the handles, just depending on the scenario. But the like handover onto say like so there's a couple of times. Oh no, there's one time where I go onto the tilt of float arm. So the camera has done the whole of episode 1 in the hand between me and Lee. And then, well, apart from the convoy where it was on a jib, we'll get to that. We basically, I put on the vest in the arm just before the last sort of interview moment where we sort of climax of that episode. And there's like a little spigot that's waiting to receive the camera onto the arm. And I like preload the arm down, like hold it so that it's like at the right height for the camera. And this happens when just before they go into that final room when the lawyer's chatting to the two of them. So Lee's been doing that section before. I preload the arm down. He lifts the camera like just is exactly where it kind of was. We meet in the middle. We sort of try and make contact, like sort of spaceship clumsily docking into the spigot hole.
Right.
And then it just slips in, and then we just let gravity do the rest. Like we've already set the arm sort of tension to the weight of the camera. So once he gently lets go of the camera, I take it, and it just doesn't even move, and it's just like goes straight in.
Yeah.
Then there's the convoy at the start of the episode. We needed a way, like for that and the drone, we needed a way of connecting the camera to these like grip bits of kit without seeing like a click, right? That's the thing like that would really throw the audience, is if like you could feel like a dunk, like a dock into, it'd be horrible. So my grip Pat Gillespie, he came up with the idea of using like a magnetic mount for the camera to get on and off the jib on the tracking vehicle at the start of Ep 1. We used it again as well in Ep 4 for the van work when we're on the bonnet of the van. So essentially it's like metal disc, which he got like a custom kind of slightly lighter weight version that was still sort of work for the magnet. And we like put it up against the magnet mount with the magnet off on the jib arm in the opening of the episode. And then they would turn the magnet on when it's already in place, basically. So there's no like, it's not pulling it into that position. It's like rested against it. And then they turn it on and it would just go whoop, and it would just like kind of sit in and lock in. And then there's like a safety that went in. And then I would like change the mode on the side of the camera to FPV, I think it was, or something. And then off it would go on its little journey up the street while I went a different way. And then it would be the same at the other end. I'd be pressurizing the camera into the magnet, sort of like pushing it up onto the jib, so that when the magnet is turned off, there's no kind of drop, And then I would sort of release that tension and off I go into the house. So we did that method for Eps 1 and 2, 1 and 4. And then into for the drone, we use a different system called a shot dock, which is like this little fun device, which is it's always tricky to try and explain, but I shall. Essentially, the camera wears this little kind of crown of like claw finger things, metal, kind of grippy claws. On the bottom of the drone, there's like a metal ball and like a sheath that comes over it, and essentially and it's got like a sort of cable and then like a brake lever basically from a bike, and that actuates the cable that pulls the sheath back, and it gives you room for this claw to sit around the ball head. And then when the sheath is when you let go of that lever, the sheath comes round over the claw, and the whole thing is connected like together.
Mhm.
And what's great about that is, again, like the magnet, you can kind of come in at any angle because it's like 360 sort of angle, sit it over the ball head, and then very gently release the lever, and it will just come around and gently grab onto it. So there's no dock, there's no kind of like moment of up and down movement.
Right.
And with that system, it's so lightweight that, it's not like the magnet, which would have been really nuts to put on the drone. It was able to, as long as you're just underslinging the camera, it can just take it. It's holding it in place. It's even got a little bit of wobble in it, because it's all the spring and stuff there. That, like, actually it's probably quite helpful for the inertia of like flying a camera that isn't designed to be flown around. So it was just, in all ways, it worked really well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was exactly as you thought. Like, the kind of clicking motion is the bit that I was most scared of. Like,
Yeah.
if we, I did wonder if you just had like a kind of like a what they call a universal mount where it just clicks in. It's like you might be able to get away with it if maybe the Z axis was on and we tried it and it worked. We looked at it for the bonnet mount, because at one point one of the parts on the slider broke. No, the magnet, something. Anyway, we needed a backup option, and so we tried it. And it could have worked. It was like, it all depended on how the Z axis reacted in that moment, and sometimes it just wasn't happy, because at that point you're covering the sensor as well underneath, so it just didn't know what to do at moments. And you never want that risk, as we were saying. So yeah.
That brings up recently, I think it's like a wilderness idea, like people who camp a lot, but it's like the pace system. The idea being everything you have should have a primary, an alternate, a contingency, and an emergency. And I've been thinking about that for filmmaking. Like, if I'm going and doing like an interview and it's just me, like, what's my primary camera, like alternate, audio systems? Like, what if this breaks? What if there's no backup? Always having backup. And what's funny is emergency on the little spreadsheet I made always is iPhone. Like, just no audio,
everything else iPhone. You can leave that. Yeah. Just stick that under the fucking That was it. Exactly. Yeah.
But what was your kind of like pace system for, especially if you're going for an hour? Like, do you just abandon the take? Like, are you only on primary, or did you have like contingency plans for if things went wrong, but the actors were still doing well?
So we had like cutoff points for when we were doing the shooting week, we knew that if we cut the take, ended it, we would have enough time to reset before, kind of, so we could squeeze another one in that morning or that afternoon, without just losing a take in that half of the day. Because, with so many of them, we even had like road lock offs that were only within a certain window, and there's all sorts of stuff that is outside of just being able to physically film it, again. So and even like rush hour traffic, like all sorts of stuff were affecting, so we had our windows in each episode. So it was, it would be, for episode 1, it was like, if we haven't made it to the police station, we can go again. So if we're in the car, and it did happen, like at one point, traffic lights. So we had a road closure, but there's one junction just before the studio where we couldn't lock the traffic lights. We couldn't hold them. We had traffic marshals pressing the pedestrian buttons in order to try and stop the lights the right way.
Right.
And it did work to an extent, but one time the lights literally were coming up to them and they just went red, like as we were getting to them. We couldn't go through the red lights because we weren't allowed, didn't have like police convoy. So we were just sat there, and poor Owen's like crying and, like in the sea of it, not in response to the traffic lights. And they're trying to drag that moment out, but it just was falling. Like, we could all tell, we're like, this is too long now. Like, the traffic lights just weren't changing back. And so we called it. They stayed in the vehicle. We went straight back to ones. We tried to get it, and we got another one in that morning, just by reacting quickly with our system in place. because otherwise you just wouldn't have used the episode. Unfortunately, there was one moment, because some stuff happens at the end of an episode and you can't do anything about that. But I basically knocked the gimbal head into a wall on one literally set after. Yeah, it sucks, right? Like, it sucks when it's you that does it, and I'm like, at least in part, like the reason I wanted to operate this job is that because I wanted to be the one annoyed at me if I did something wrong. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to be the DP sat at the monitor and two of my operators, like, and one of them fucks up, and then you're like, oh, like then you've got to be annoyed at them or comfort them because they'll feel like shit, like whatever. But basically, yeah, like I turned the corner out the medical room on one of the takes. It was a really good take as well. And I was just like that close to like too close to the door, like the door frame. And I just as I bent round the edge of the gimbal, just tapped the wall, and it was enough that the image went boop boop,
Yeah.
like literally for like a fraction of a second, like 3 frames maybe, went to the left and back again. It like corrected itself immediately, but that impact was enough. And we were saying there's no cuts in this, so there was that would have had to have been part of it, the episode, which is impossible to hide because the entire frame is motion blur for like 3 frames. So yeah, so I knew when I did that,
like you didn't want to do.
Yeah, and it was horrendous as well. It was like 90 degrees and back again very quickly, but it was like, what the heck, what just happened?
Right.
So I remember handing the camera over to Lee because he had a section to do after that. And I went like, it's done, dude. He was like, what? And I was like, it's over. But keep going. And when that happened, like, it's better to keep going, and it be more of a like a not just another practice. Even it's painful because the actors are pouring their hearts out, and you can't tell them that it's not the one,
right.
Even if you know something. And that happened a few times where like something didn't quite work out, but you've got to the point where you need to keep going to the end, otherwise you're not going to get another one anyway. So you might as well practice.
Right.
But it always felt like a bit of a liar to sort of like continuing on filming someone knowing this isn't the right, take. But yeah.
Well, and I imagine as the operator, like it's hard to kind of lock in when this isn't the one. Like it's hard to stay in the moment, when this is.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like
completely, especially in the more physically like demanding sections where you're having to tell yourself to ignore the fact your body is screaming at you. Like you're having to tell yourself like you've got to do this, you've got to hold the frame, you've got to make sure you get this bit perfect. When it's all out the window, you're just like resting your arms on your chest. You're just like, yeah, whatever, like this will do.
Were you guys wearing like a back brace or anything? Because how long was the longest take for you? Like 15, 20 minutes?
We were doing, I think, the longest section
or not take, but like section we were holding.
Yeah, section, yeah. Like we did a lot of changeovers in episode 4, lots in 2. In episode 1, I did a section that was like 15 minutes long, which was the medical room section. I did like a bunch of stuff around there, and that was horrendous. Like I was on that close up of Stephen when he's like, it's just him, and we're not seeing what's happening over like behind me. And it's all emotion on his face, and I'm holding the camera like in really close to him, and that is like right at the end of that long section, and I like my forearms are shaking, like my like lactic acid building up. I'm like sweat running down like into my eye. I'm like, I like how anyone can perform like act in that scenario is just beyond me. But yeah, so that was the worst bit, I would say. Well, no, actually, episode 3 was really hard because that was all me, but it was on like the tilter arm, so that helped. It was just on my back. It was a lot on my back. Yeah. But yeah, so there was long sections. And Lee actually in episode 4 did have quite a long section as well, where he did like a bunch of running. I said he like ran to chase after Steven and then back again.
I feel like running would be better because at least you're like your body is built for that versus just
in a way maybe
stay still. Like plyometrics are hard.
Yeah. Like if you're holding any weight out at arm's length, it's like horrendous, isn't it? So it like, and obviously even just being here, like you at times want to be like that. There was moments where when I was operating some sections in one of the police cells in Owen's cell, basically in episode 1, and the end bedroom scene in 4, where I would be more comfortable getting into like a sort of slab squat, like when it's a low level shot, instead of like bending down or something, I would just like squat down because I could just like sit there like a little gremlin with my elbows on my knees, holding the camera. Like that takes the weight off my arms for a bit, and I can just be in like this little squat position, which also is like a different position for your legs to be in. It sort of stretches you out. It's quite nice.
Yeah,
So I would like try and find that position quite often. I'm sure people were like, again, what is he doing? But like it was, and sometimes you do that and then you like go to your knee for a moment and then you get back up off your knees and you carry on and like, yeah, that, but like variety was actually quite appreciated at times when you're operating something like that.
yeah. What was the? I usually ask documentary DPs this, but what was the shoe situation?
Shoe situation. Oh, well. Well, do you have to ask documentary DPs that? Surely they're just wearing like their boots, no?
Well, so this is the thing is like because the doc DPs tend to just be standing around, walking around. You know,
Yeah.
there's just a lot of handheld for doc DPs.
Yeah.
So they and I had at one point I had a list and like everyone had it. Obviously, Blundstones are popular, but like I learned the hard way with a big tilter ring, you know, gimbal. You should not wear Blundstones because it goes ka-thunk, 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 and it'll shake even if you have the
Good. It's
gimbal a
like
little.
solid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like solid boots. So you almost impact twice, don't you? Yeah. I think for most of the time, me and Lee were both in like running shoes,
Yeah,
basically. I was in like trail running shoes because they're just like versatile, they're
those
soft.
are popular.
Yeah. So yeah,
Hokas
I
or
had some
whatever.
Nikes. I think actually he was been in this like Salomon like GTX sixes, whatever they are, those ones. Solomon, one of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a mixture of that. There was one moment in episode four, it was the end of episode four, where I pick up the camera from like up the stairs into the last scene in the bedroom, and I had to take my shoes off because the floor was really squeaky with the shoes. That bedroom floor was like laminate flooring,
Hmm.
like wood. So I just kicked my shoes off, and actually it was quite nice again, like a bit of a change.
Yeah.
There was also we had issues with the floor. It didn't relate to footwear, but the in that main room in episode three, well, it is related to footwear because we went away for the weekend after rehearsal week, the last rehearsal week, came back in for the first shooting week take, and someone had like cleaned that floor in that main room, but they had removed like all dust. And so it was like with our shoes in there, me and two boom ops, it was this squeakiest like
Oh
scrap,
yeah.
like it would sound like a badminton court. Like it was like like you
Yeah.
move around, it was squeaking everywhere. So we had to like add dust back onto it. We had to like make it dirty again in order for the sound to be better because like we couldn't do that one like, you know, without wearing shoes. It was fairly horrendous. And then also at one point the floor was like uh it would like hit slightly lifted like the sort of floor over the floor of the studio was slightly lifted, so there was like this sort of air gap which was like smacking down occasionally in different places. And then also like when there's a moment when Jamie throws some hot chocolate, smacks it off the table. That hot chocolate was originally like real hot chocolate, and he like it goes on the floor, and then suddenly, like, we start walking through it as we keep going around the table, and we're like sticking to the floor, and you
Yeah.
can hear it in all the dialogue. We're like it's a horrible sound. So then art department, well, props had to come up with a hot chocolate mixture that was still tasty, but was like not sticky, and it was
Right.
like a protein like thing that they protein powder that they came up with or something, and you mix that with some other stuff. Um, but yeah, all sorts of weird problems, isn't there, that you get when you're like doing a weird thing. You're
Yeah.
like, oh, who'd have thought it? Like the hot chocolate is going to be too sticky on the floor. Like what? Yeah. Not
Yeah.
something you consider.
I I saw Netflix had tweeted out like the take, the amount of
Mm.
takes, and I found it hilarious that it was like 16, 13, 10, 2. Like what happened on the 2?
Oh, yeah. That's
Like
not the
did you guys
total number of takes, to be fair. That's the take we
Oh,
used.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I was about to say,
Yeah.
if you nail it on 2, do you guys just go, all right, job done, high five, let's go to
Sweet.
the pub?
Nice
You
one.
know,
See you
like,
next week.
yeah.
I wish we had to use every take we could in case we got something better.
Mm-hmm.
Because we never knew like you could get into posts and start noticing stuff with the take that you think you like. you know, and then like, actually I wish we'd done like a couple of backups when we had like the, you know, when we took Thursday, Friday off. So we had to fill the whole week. But yeah, that second take that we used was the second take of episode 1, which apparently performance-wise was the best. I know that for me, annoyingly, technically, episode 1 improved quite a lot after that. But it's knowing, you know, like it's not the first time as a DP the performance is chosen over like, you know, the cinematography, and often people know what people are going to notice or care about, and it's also still done well enough for me, so I'm not gonna be too bitter about their decision. But yeah, so that is weird looking back, because you're like, I feel like certain things improve later on in that week, but apparently the bits that are more important were amazing at the start. And sometimes the energy decreases in ways as well in the performance when they get more used to what we're doing. But yeah, it's interesting seeing it's basically the last take of every episode apart from that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's an absolute triumph of the show. So I'd like, you got it. I see.
Thank you, mate.
You said you're not 30, but I think the next 30 years might be good for you. hopefully
so.
You get to do shows with cuts.
Yeah, it would be nice. I was going to say, I hope that, you know, that, well, I have just come off of one that has had loads of cuts, and that's lovely. Yeah. It was actually a strange one to come off the back of Adolescence onto like a feature film, and I was like, in my head, I was like, oh, I've got to think the other way now. I can hide things. I can light someone's face, and I can just bring like Neg in here. Yeah. I can put like a lamp just there. Like, that's so alien to me suddenly. Like, a really nice treat, but also like weird for the first few weeks to be like, okay, my shot list is like actually a shot list. All right, fine. So yeah. But no, I hope so. I hope that, you know, I just love making, I don't know, telling these stories, and just, it's just fun. It's a really fun job. Very lucky to do it. I mean, crafting images is just like it's a joy. So yeah, hopefully people like my images for as long as I can hold a camera, which might not be very long if I keep on doing one shots. Because I would very much put my back out on Adolescence. So listen, yeah.
Deakins is still, as far as I'm aware, still hand holding some stuff. So
I think he is. Yeah. He set the bar high there, so you have to keep going.
Yep. Well, thanks for spending the hour with me, man. Absolutely flew by, and like I said, it's a phenomenal show. So you should feel very proud of yourself.
Thank you, dude. It's been a great chat. Really enjoyed it.
Frame and Reference is an Albot production, produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan. If you'd like to support the podcast directly, you can do so by going to frameandrefpod.com and clicking on the Patreon button. It's always appreciated, and as always, thanks for listening.